back again. We'll talk about natal Venus. Your natal Venus. A lot of people, consider it feminist, like a feminine planet. Um, I guess it could be that. Um, I don't have any qualms over that, but it also is it's also a beauty planet. It symbolizes beauty, and of course, that beauty is interpreted between what the native thinks what beauty is. Um, Venus is also the natal Venus, the transiting Venus. They also represent money because Venus rules Taurus in the second house. Venus rules Taurus in the second house of material. It's a Earth sign. So, where your natal Venus is a clear indication of beauty, where your beauty lies, where uh, it co-consists within your life, where it fits in with your life. Maybe it's in communication. Maybe your natal Venus is somewhere in air signs, and you speak very fluently or very lovely. Maybe your natal Venus is in um, an Earth sign. Maybe your natal Venus is in an Earth sign, and it could bring wealth. Maybe your natal Venus is in a fire sign, um, which could be Sagittarius, Aries, or Leo, and that could bring a significant uh, beauty. So, if Venus is in your first house, you could physically look good. You could look good in, in any house, basically. But what the energy is, where Venus is kind of adapts to that energy of where it's at. So, for instance, if it's in Aries, it usually brings more of uh, an indication of maybe a vibrant type of beauty. Taurus would be Venus and Taurus. Venus belongs in Taurus, so that would be fixed. So Venus um, would probably represent something material. If Venus was in Gemini, you probably would speak very lovely or be a singer. If Venus was in the fourth house, maybe you have a good family life. Venus in the fourth house also represents fame. Venus in the fifth house of Leo, you could physically look spectacular in some sense. Venus in the sixth house, maybe you go with people. You speak lovely with people. Venus in the seventh, good with relations. put like an extra flair. Venus in Scorpio is a Venus in Scorpio is a person that thrives for love passionately. Venus in Sagittarius is basically somebody who um, loves to teach or higher learning, loves to do it. Venus in Capricorn usually means the person is physically active. Venus in Aquarius is somebody who's popular, could be fame. Venus in Pisces is somebody who, um, Venus in Pisces. Venus in Pisces is somebody who speaks elegantly towards the masses, like someone like fame in some sense. Does it sound repetitious? Probably. But the more you do transits and the more you do natal planets, you'll find that there's a lot of them that are similar. Sister signs carry similar traits. So, like for instance, the Capricorn and Cancer, they're similar, but yet they're opposite. So, for instance, Capricorns are earth signs, and Capricorns are winter babies. So, their winter babies are you can research it. It's out there. Their winter babies are not as successful per se as a lot of them are late bloomers, but yet throughout their lives, it doesn't necessarily mean career, but Capricorns are successful at whatever they do. It's just that's how the energy is. But yet they're very because they're winter babies, a lot of them carry a sense of morals, of ethics, very judging through that. And winter, everything goes dead. So the similarities of the seasons are quite interesting. So, for instance, with their sister signs as Cancer runs down the chart, Cancers are border signs, and yet they represent fame. They represent um, they represent the father just as much as um, uh, Capricorns, but yet they're very emotional. They run by the moon. The moon rules them because the moon is the fastest thing there is. You find all the Cancer natives, they can't sit still. They're always moving. Always moving. Um, so their sister signs, um, Capricorn and Cancer. We're gonna go through the sister signs with you as Aries and Libra, Taurus and Scorpio, Gemini and Sagittarius, Cancer with Capricorn, Leo with Aquarius, and Virgo with Pisces, sister signs. Give and take, two different types of personalities. They uh, they're they're similar in some ways, In some ways, they're the total opposite, and yet they you'll find a lot of love relationships in sister signs. Opposites attract. So that's that. um Gosh, I broke my train of thought here. Um yeah. Natal Venus is a peculiar planet. It's a good planet. All planets are good. That one, to me, that one is very peculiar. Venus. I mean, especially in today's day and age, it's like, you know, it it's a very warm. It casts very warm energy, uh, and yet, um, it stays very quiet. Um, I don't know. Um, Represents money, material things, motherhood, femininity. Um, I just, I mean, I do agree with the interpretations, the old interpretations with it. I think it's true, but it's like when it hits different areas of your sign, um, when transiting Venus goes around your chart, hits your AC, you might have a very lovely day. You might feel vibrant. Transiting Venus on your AC, when transiting Venus conjuncts to your natal sun, which roughly is close to your birthday, because transiting Mercury, Venus come roughly right before your birthday. They're fast planets. When transiting Venus goes to your MC, um, MC, you're out in the open. Maybe your job, or your career, or maybe your family, or some type of fame comes once a year. It lands up on your MC. Yeah, it's some type of fame. It's very lovely. Transiting Venus conjunct to your sun, natal sun, when it's roughly your birthday time. It's birthday time. Maybe it's 2 weeks before your birthday or after. Yeah, it's really nice. Um, if we could go through, um, a guy was there's a great book, 12 Houses. Highly recommend. Uh, it it's a great book he wrote with Liz Green called The 12th Houses. Apparently, he uh, he was an author, and just to jot back, um, his natal Venus. His natal Venus. He was an author, His natal Venus was, I think, roughly, I would give it, I'd say it was close to his fifth house, and it was trining his natal natal Neptune in the eighth. His natal Neptune is dreams, delusions, um, flips everything. It's just it's dreams. Basically, it's dreams and aspects of like some type of um, it's like the sea. It's deep. It's enriching. Neptune is like that, but it's also dreams and delusions. So it's basically, um, whether or not it's true, whether or not the good dream or a nightmare. But it trins his natal Venus in the fifth, and his natal Neptune is in the eighth of Scorpio, which is the underworld. Uh, Basically, he wrote that book, that which is extremely, I guess, taboo in some sense, that the zodiac is like that. Um, Zodiac, not too many people know how to read natal charts. His Mercury was in the second, and he was an author. He spoke to a lot of different lectures, like astrological lectures with Liz Green. Apparently, um, apparently he died, but yeah, his chart kind of explains his energy flow. So if we look back, another one would be we could look at Marilyn Monroe, where her natal Venus excuse me. Her natal Venus was high on her chart. Here it is, the pink. Her natal Venus was in Aries, and even though her Aries was also it was a fire sign. Aries is a fire sign. You see the red. Uh, it was also her natal Venus was in Aries, but Aries is also in her Sagittarius house. So she had fire on fire, and her Venus was there. She was incredibly good looking woman, right? But if you look, her MC is right above, is right up there. Her natal Venus is high on her chart. Is this Marilyn Monroe? So I think it's very interesting chart, because you got to also remember she 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 was an actress, right? So Marilyn Monroe was an actress. And she spoke a lot, and she had a lot of fame, right? She's a Gemini, and Gemini, 10th degree over here. And roughly that's between 10th and 11th house. It's roughly 10th, 11th, 10th house Capricorn, 11th house Aquarius, roughly in that zone. And it's in that zone where her Mercury is in Gemini. It's in the 10th house too. So she was extremely successful. But her voice, her natal Mercury was her voice. It's also money. But they were very close together. They were extremely close, but they were also in the 10th house. So she was a very good looking woman with, her Venus in close to her 10th house as well. But her Venus was extremely high on her chart. And depending upon what planet is so high on your chart, it's a good indication of what your life is like. So you could have, like, if you looked at her, she was a successful woman, very good looking. It's up on her chart. It's the highest thing on her chart. But yet, what happened to her? What happened to her? Uh, her her life. Um, I haven't done much research, but it would be very interesting to see. She also had natal Uranus. Here's her natal Uranus right here, 29 degrees. It's in the eighth house. And the indication of this is if your natal Uranus is in the eighth house, it's a sudden death because it's in the eighth house. And they say eighth house is death and birth, but it's also the process of it. It's the process of it. It's not just death and birth, death and birth. It's the process of it. So she had Uranus, and there's an indication, there's a long indication of Uranus. If you have natal Uranus in the eighth house, it's sudden death, and she had a sudden death. Her natal Neptune is in the first, and she was an actress. Natal Neptune, 22 degrees, first house. She's an actress. Carrie Fisher, if you see Princess Leia, if you see her chart, her Neptune is conjunct, is together with her MC, her midhaven. Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia. She couldn't go anywhere without being called Princess Leia. It's also an indication that she took a lot of drugs too. I mean, it's just, I think a lot of these things, I mean, if you read the mythology of astrology, if you study it, it's right there. You read the charts, you can pick up so much about somebody's personality. All right. So anyway, um, hope hope that made a lot of sense. Please, study your astrology, and if you have any questions, you could always, message me or look things. Um, you could look me up or anything like that. And tell your friends about my podcast. Please do. Um, I'm trying to keep, the true essence of astrology up. Um, I said in the other podcast, but I kind of like totally forgot sometimes you just ramble on and you forget the main points and all that. But I was talking to Robert Hand about Mercury retrograde because planets go backwards. And so every planet that goes backwards, it's referred to retro. So there could be a retro Uranus, a retro Neptune. It's just a particular time a planet just stays, they say it goes backwards, but yet it's a different story. It's referred going backwards. So Mercury retrograde goes backwards. Mercury Mercury goes backwards. Retrograde. Retrograde going back 4 times a year. And these 4 times a year, there's this stigma of people getting paranoid of feeling that they can't do anything with a Mercury retrograde, or just because Mercury is in retrograde, I can't do this or that or anything, like communications is broken down. It happens, but it doesn't. It does happen at that time. It's also a thing where a lot of people aren't aware, but when Mercury retrograde happens, usually at the end of the retrograde, you come across an old friend. An old friend comes about. They pop out of nowhere after the retrograde, and right after it ends. So that's another thing. Um, I was talking to Robert Hand about it, and he was like, Robert Hand, the astrologer. And he was like, he was he was really, I think he was really upset at the fact that people have gotten so strung up on it, you know. Um, and it's sad, you know. I mean, you look at a lot of things in social media, and astrology has become so like a voodoo kind of religion where people just um they just get into these negative things where it just the transits don't make any sense. You know, it's just it's like more paranoia kind of crap. I mean, you have these aspects of quote unquote good aspects, which is a sextile when one planet is in a station with another planet, whether it's a transit or a natal planet, and they're like 60 degrees between both of each other. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing when a planet is trining, and that's a that's two. What is that? It's that's 120 degrees from each other, 4 houses away. And it's a good thing. It's a good trimming is good. Okay, fine. But then you have these things where squares are a little bit rough for transits. Really, not necessarily. Depending upon depending upon the planet, it could be a good thing. So squares could be a good thing, and sextiles and trins could be a bad thing too. But not necessarily. I never really see them bad. But in other words, how you define bad and good is another thing. It's like, you have these serendipitous adventures and they lead on to other good things, right? So if you have a bad time, it could lead into something good. That's another factor. And it's totally forgotten. So a lot of people assume all squares are bad. No, not all squares are bad. Not all Not all sextiles or trends are good, really. I mean, and it depends on the person. Depends on the person if they they take on what's called for them to do. That's how it is. Natal Venus. It's a good planet. Um, where your natal Venus is when you discover where it says a lot about you, and only you would know about yourself more than anybody. I had tons of astrologers throughout the years tell me, like, I got this aspect on my chart that I don't know, it was just like, for whatever, and for whatever it is, it didn't fit me at all. One astrologer kind of pinpointed that transit more accurately, that fit me, that fit what happened in my life than anything else. So it depends. It really. Uh, I spoke to an old astrologer, Noel Tai, Old astrologer, just a brilliant guy. He was another one. He was another one that tried to keep people, uh, you know, at at true astrology. Um, yeah, here he is. He wrote several books. They're all great. Um, I spoke to him right before he passed away. Um, Brilliant guy. Let me see if I can bring him up. Um, I'm glad I spoke to him. Natal wrote several different books. Um, um, just brilliant, just great guy. Um, just recently passed away in 2019. I think there's some interviews on YouTube about him, but apparently he always put an emphasis on people learning astrology by yourself, because by yourself is what you are more in tune to see what's happening in your life. You know yourself more than anybody else does. Uh, Let me see if I can bring him up here. All right, I got him. Let me switch this out. Multi. It's a Capricorn. A Leo, third house. Leo, natal moon. Capricorn in the seventh, and his Jupiter was conjunct. Jupiter was conjunct. Yeah, this guy was famous. Yeah, he was very, very famous. Wrote a lot of astrology books. His midhaven was Pisces. Very imaginative. Another one with natal Saturn, very above, like Justin Trudeau's. His Mercury was in his eighth. Talked about taboo topics, and his natal Venus was in the ninth. He was a teacher of astrology. So you had to teach, and you had a placement, and placement being Venus in the ninth house. So his Mercury, communications, money, was in the eighth. His natal Sun with his Jupiter in the seventh. Yeah, really nice guy. He had Gemini, mostly Gemini, Cancer as AC. Really interesting. I hope you liked the show, and I'm gonna work on some more podcasts soon. So stay in touch and tell your friends about me, please. Thanks.